Hello, Stephen White, Trickboy89 here. A little bit of news on the new Picard series. Alex Kurtzman was at Paley Fest in LA, and he made not really any statements, but just a few comments. He says that Picard faces a gauntlet, and it's a psychological look at the character, or a very psychological series. Now, he said some things are fundamental about Picard, but at the same time, he has to rediscover himself. That things have changed for him and he's changed, but he's still fundamentally Picard. So there's a lot of contradictory sort of PR stuff you hear where it's just they want to satisfy everyone. Oh, it's totally different, but it's totally the same. He's true to his character, but he's a totally different character. So it means they can go anywhere, do anything, and not really be accountable for anything. So it doesn't give us much, and it's a little bit of double talk. So it's not that encouraging. Although he has said that his idea for the franchise is that all the series have to be uniquely different and speak to different parts of Star Trek fandom, or Star Trek as a concept, Trek as a concept, which means that the new series will be very different from Discovery or any of the other series, which, of course, considering how bad Discovery Season 1 was and how problematic Discovery Season 2 still is, the fact that it's going to be different from them is a good sign, although they could go further along those lines and be worse, or they could pull back a bit and have it be more in line with the other Star Trek series. Although, due to the licensing issues, they still can't replicate the tone and look of the Next Generation series. So it won't be a continuation of Next Gen, and it won't be anything like that. We have no idea what it's going to be like, but at least it won't just be Discovery with Picard on it. So that's something, I guess. It's going to be highly serialized, 10 episodes. They're going to start production in April. They've got April 15 down in the Santa Clarita Studios. Now, they've only announced 3 cast members, Santiago Cabrera and Michelle Hurd, who are from Law and Order, and I've forgotten the other show the guy's on. Oops. No, but the new news is that there's an Australian actor slash model, Evan Evagara, who has been cast presumably as the young Romulan, because he's very young, in his 20s. There's a Romulan character, half Romulan character who's been announced, who's a martial arts expert who seems to have been raised in some religious cult, or in relation to some royalty or some element where he's unique. It would seem he's going to play that role because that's the youngest cast member and the youngest character from the descriptions, and we only have vague descriptions which are not official, so it's hard to tell which characters any of the actors are actually playing, but there's some speculation there. And the name is still a mystery. There have been placeholders of Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Destiny. Star Trek Destiny was copyrighted earlier in the year, around the time they made the announcement of the series, but still there's no word of what an actual name is. The director, Hanel Culpepper, I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. I can't even speak. She's directing the first 2 episodes. She's been fairly active on Twitter, but still pretty much said nothing. She's basically taken questions from people, but pretty much just said, I'm not saying anything till the premiere. So she's sticking to her NDA, and she's smart to do that, because not only do you not want to spoil things for people, but you also don't want to get in trouble with the studio because you've contradicted something they're saying, or you've said something which now they have to PR around because they don't agree with it or don't want that out there. So I think that's everything. It was not a lot of news, just mainly just the 3rd cast member and Kurtzman's comments, which, like I said, were very double talk and contradictory. You know, oh, it's Picard as we know him, but not as we know him. It's, you know, so yeah. I'm not feeling optimistic about the show, really, but at the same time, I have such low expectations. It's like, okay, so it's not a sequel to Star Trek Next Generation. It's not a continuation of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's not Picard as we knew him in The Next Generation. It's Prime era Picard, Prime universe Picard, which is Prime is the universe that we see in the JJ films before Spock crosses over, which we were led to believe was the original series production timeline, but it actually wasn't. They had to make up their own timeline, which they cast Nimoy in to give it some credibility and create the illusion that it was actually the original series they were continuing on, or that universe they were coming from. But it's actually its own universe, and the JJ timeline is an alternative timeline in that universe. So Discovery is based in that, although Discovery also has been altered by time travel because, spoilers, Burnham's mother went back in time and saved her life when she should have died, and obviously her living has changed a lot of things in the future. The Klingon War, all of that wouldn't have happened if she had died as a child. So there's a lot of so that's obviously an alternate timeline in that universe, just like the JJ films are after Spock and Nero and the Narada came through the red matter time hole in space, whatever it was. Storm, I can't remember how they described it. Storm in space, a hole in space, wormhole, black hole. I can't remember. I haven't seen the film for a while. I'm not a hater. I watched it in the cinema about 10 times. I had it on Blu-ray. I've watched it a few times. I just haven't watched it for years because Into Darkness kind of cooled me off on the series. I had a lot of hope when it first started, and I hoped that they would do a TV series of the series and just recast for TV and just have Star Trek on TV and in the movies, or after the movies finished, do the TV show. And then later I hoped they'd do a Pike series with the same aesthetic and maybe some guest stars occasionally from the movies. Yeah, but they didn't. So, but they still could. They could, if they really, really wanted to, they could do a Pike series on the Enterprise, just running along with Discovery or just replacing Discovery, and we would love it. With him and Rebecca Romaine, it'd be awesome, but they won't do that because that's what we want. And they're determined to not do what the fans want and to do Star Trek for people who hate Star Trek. So, because they want the general audience who never liked Star Trek to watch this show, and they don't care if the fans are alienated because they just don't value our money. They don't care if we watch the series. They don't care if we buy merchandise because they think this new audience is going to support them like we have. I spent my whole life buying Star Trek merchandise, watching the shows. I've got a shitload of stuff. I've spent hundreds, well not hundreds, definitely tens of thousands on Star Trek. And they apparently don't value that. And apparently they think the people who are watching Discovery, and all the people I've met who have watched the show and liked it, watched it once on Netflix, didn't buy any merchandise, and went on to the next Netflix show when it finished. So shows like Star Trek, they don't survive on the general mass appeal of the general audience and ratings and advertising. They survive on merchandising supported by a small amount of a cult group of fanatics who will spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on the show that they love because it gives them something unique that no other show does. That's why it creates a cult following. They're abandoning this because they just don't understand it. And this is clear, and it's going to be the same problem with Picard, although I don't think they could screw it up as bad as they did as the first season of Discovery, because they have learnt, and they've even changed the season 2 of Discovery, but they're going in a different direction anyway, so I'm sure it can't be as bad as that. And because it's 20 years after Picard, the 25% difference, the fact they can't have the same theme and look as the Next Gen won't matter as much because it's set 25 years after and we don't know exactly what that era would have been like or look like anyway. Whereas Discovery was set in an era that was established that we know. So it was like doing a historical piece and then just deciding, well, people didn't wear this in the 1800s. They wore this, and then making it look nothing like we know the 1800s looked. And that's what they did with Star Trek. We knew what the 2250s looked like. And they just decided to do their own thing. So I'm just going to leave it there. It's just a bit of news and I guess a bit of my thoughts about the overall show, where it's going. I don't even know if I'll be watching it because I think I'm going to have to pay for CBS bought Channel 10 in Australia, and Channel 10 All Access it's just like CBS All Access. So they're apparently going to put Picard on that. So if they have a 3-month first month subscription, I'll watch the first couple of episodes, but I won't be paying for it. Unless it's good and they actually don't screw it up like I think they're going to. I'll give them a shot. But I'm not going to be one of those people who just watches it like some drone just because it's Star Trek, and something's better than nothing. So thanks for listening. I'll keep posting any new information I find out about the show.